142 countries on RTTY. Back in the day when basically you had nothing in the way of a receiver.
Wow. Yeah. Well, of course, now it's totally silent because it's all software.
Yeah, and that's what happened after I got the HAL devices, which was a Z80 in a box with a glass CRT, and it would do Morse and it would do RTTY, and it was actually a 1200 bit per second telephone modem when I had a 300 bit per second Hayes modem. So I actually had a faster modem in my ham setup.
Cool.
But anyway, I've been pumping FT8 on 17 meters since the middle of July, and I got WAS, and I just got the DXCC, and now up to about 115 countries. So just on 17 meters. Got to use that
on the one band.
On one band. I got to use that cycle 25 while you can. You know.
Got to use it while you can.
I've been telling Jeremy, the interesting thing is I'm running an antenna that's a Alpha Delta 160, 80, and 40 meter dual sloper, and that's my 17 meter antenna. And it loads too. Not only loads, it gets out.
What was really, I mean, it was funny in the contest because we were running the club station, the club call as a contest station, Alpha 60 Alpha. And we were the only station in the UAE participating in the contest. So everybody wanted us for the multiplier. Sure. We were the only game in town, and we were running what they call multi-single. So you have one transmitter that can run a frequency, and the other one is limited to doing search and pounce on other bands. The guy who was operating the S&P, he's a Russian guy, and he's just really good at contesting, and he was pulling out weak signals from Mexico. Mexico is like the hardest country to get from here. He got Mexico, he got Colombia, he got this station on Antigua and Barbuda that had a massive pileup of North American and European stations. So it was kind of fun. Definitely fun.
All right. Should we get started?
My best DX on 17 meters was not for distance because I got Australia, but New Caledonia. I thought that was a nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's a good one.
Okay.
Do you say North Korea?
That's not gonna. It's all yours.
That would be pretty good. All right. Should we get started? So welcome all. This is the September meeting of the Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club. I'm Jeremy, N2ZLQ, club president. As we normally do, we'll go around with introductions.
Rich, KB3VZL.
Dennis, K3DS.
Herb, K3YR, operating as Alpha 65 Papa X-Ray.
Jim, W3JNF, public service.
All right. Welcome all. Let's see. I think we have a few people watching on YouTube as well. So if you guys want to chime in, you can type in your information there. All right. So to get us started, let's see. I do have a report from Lou, the treasurer. Let's see. It's going to take me a minute to pull that up. But maybe in the meantime, let's go over to Dennis. Repeaters. You have an update?
Well, we had a failure on 06 before one of our now postponed Wednesday nets, but that's why the net got postponed on Wednesday, but because the repeater failed. Although 1.3 was running, so people have got to remember there is a linked repeater, and the situation is still being investigated. It may be the power amplifier, or it may be the power supply, and I'm still in the throes of figuring that out. MARC did obtain finally the new duplexer for the running 444050 Fusion repeater at Derby. It is running. It's just that the Fusion repeater's duplexer is a little old in the tooth. It's got about 3 dB of losses. It should have more like about 1.5 dB. And I can't do anything between now and probably about the middle of November to go down there and replace it. And Steve, K3FZT, will be my sidekick, and he'll hopefully come with me, and we'll do that. And then hopefully, see if we can get a few more stations to check out 3.6, because the activity level is slim and none. In fact, probably closer to none. It's very hard to tell whether it's actually working or not. Although I did work it, I worked it just fine in the Mobile, coming from North Philadelphia. There was no problem at all. And Vince N3BFZ's right there in Lansdowne, so he can hear the repeater no problem. And I was getting in, so maybe it's okay. Who knows? We'll have to see. But the number of reports are pretty minimal, that's for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dennis.
Right now, 06 is running a whopping 4 watts to the antenna. But everybody seems to have not a problem with it. So,
All right. Thank you, Dennis. And I see Saul at W3WHK checks in on YouTube. And I see Brian has joined us as well, AA3BK. All right. So I do have the treasurer's report up here as of earlier this month. Account balance is $16,537.09. Current membership status is at 77. Let's see. Dennis, did you want to give an update on the holiday party?
well, we should definitely have one, if that's what you mean. No, it's been scheduled since the summer, and I stopped in about 2 weeks ago, and I asked them again, "You really do have our reservation?" Yes, and so we're go, and that's always the second Saturday. So make that the Saturday, December 9th, 12 o'clock straight up. A good time will be had by all. The club subsidizes 50% of your luncheon, so please come out, and then we'll have a good time, I'm sure, as we did last year.
Right. Thanks, Dennis. Jim, you want to tell us about public service? You're muted.
How's that? Does that sound better? Sorry. Public service, we have 2 possible between now and the end of the year. The next one coming up is the Penwin at the elementary school. It's a 5K. That's on the 15th, Sunday the 15th. The next one after that is the Radnor Run. That would be on November 5th. That's always a fun time, but we need more volunteers for that because it's a large course and the up and down hills, and definitely mobiles work better there. The other one that's a possibility is the Vietnam Veterans Memorial. It's on the same day as the Radnor Run, if they keep it as they did in the past, but we haven't heard from anybody in almost a year, so that one's probably not a good possibility. More to come on that one.
Would it be the same day? Because I thought the Norristown was usually on a Saturday.
Well, they're both scheduled for the 5th.
Oh, the Norristown is scheduled for the 5th?
I think so, yeah.
I thought they were usually a Saturday morning and the Radnor Run was a Sunday.
Well, that's the date I have from last year. Maybe that date is not correct.
Well, if it was the 5th last year, then it would be
Let me
the
see
4th
here.
is this year, right?
Pardon?
Because the 5th last year, I think, was a Saturday.
Okay. Yeah, I
I
don't know.
thought I remember them usually being a Saturday morning,
Okay.
Radnor being a Sunday.
And that's I can't answer that right now. I don't have my calendar up. I don't think that's going to happen either. But
Yeah.
if it does turn out to be on the same day, that's going to be a big issue.
All right. Thanks, Jim. Let's see. Herb, did you want to give an update on nets?
Well, on nets. So there's not a whole lot of activity to report on nets. Obviously, the decision was made to drop one of the 2 weekly nets and go down to Sundays only. I just took a quick look at the sign up list on the web, and there is absolutely nobody signed up for net control between now and the rest of the year. So even with going down to 1 net a week, we have no net control operators. I think we need to figure out how to do something about that.
Yeah, because I'm going to be out of town this weekend. So
Yeah, you're going to be out of town this weekend. I'm out of town now. Dennis is going to be on vacation. And I just don't know how we're going to cover those nets, but I guess we'll just figure it out.
okay. All right. So let's see what other items. The Ham Fest was very successful. It was held back in August. I want to thank Bob, our Ham Fest chair, and all those who made it possible. Ham Fest was very successful. We had somewhat higher expenses than previous years, but we had a very nice turnout on the field. Had a number of indoor vendors. I think we had a fairly good attendance as well. So we're looking forward to next year's Ham Fest. We still have to confirm that with the fire department and get a date confirmed, but we're hoping that that will come through. Does anyone else have anything for committee reports or club business before we get to the main topic tonight?
Just one clarification, the November 5th is Sunday.
Okay, so that's the Radnor run. Okay.
And also the other one was scheduled for that day too, so.
It said November 5th, 2023.
As far as I know.
I never, for the Norristown, I never saw anything for this. The only one I saw is the March 25th that on the flyer that they were handing out last year.
They do it on a Saturday. That would be the 4th.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think it's going to happen, but so the Radnor run is Sunday, and possibly if it happens, it may be on the 4th, if that's what it was last year. It was Saturday.
Okay. Thanks, Jim. Anything else? All right, so that brings us to the main topic this evening, and that's going to be the PAQSO party. So it's an annual contest event that occurs every year. This year it'll be October 14 and 15. Last year we did host a club station, and we got first place in Montgomery County. So I got this really nice certificate here. So our plan is that we're going to set up at the Lower Providence Firehouse, which is our usual field day location. And we are planning to be there starting Saturday morning, October 14th. We'll be there till midnight or so on Saturday night. And then the contest does continue through to Sunday, but we do have the Penwin 5K in the morning. So we'll be staffing that and then hopefully returning to the field day site after that to operate for a little while, but that'll be one of the things to determine. So now, Herb, do you mind if I go first with the eclipse stuff? We'll do that.
By all means.
Okay. Yeah, so we have kind of perhaps a once in a lifetime opportunity, because between about noon and 2:30 p.m. in our area, we're going to have a partial solar eclipse. And it turns out that where we're set up is actually a pretty nice location for observing the eclipse, of course, assuming that the weather is decent, which probably means that it's going to be raining and pouring all day. So sorry, guys. It'll be like that year with field day where we had the tarp set up. But if it is clear, we will be able to observe the eclipse. So I put together kind of a short little presentation here explaining a little bit about eclipses and what we hope to be able to see. So let me share my screen here. All right, can everybody see that? So this will be about the October 14, 2023 partial solar eclipse. So eclipses occur when the sun, the earth, and the moon are in a straight line. This occurs up to 7 times a year, although depending on where you are, you may or may not be able to see an eclipse. So there are 2 types of eclipses. You have lunar eclipses, which is where the earth passes between the sun and the moon, and you can see the earth casts its shadow onto the moon. And then you have solar eclipses, where the moon passes between the earth and the sun, and the moon actually casts a small shadow onto the surface of the earth. So a little bit about lunar eclipses. Those always occur at full moon. Obviously, they're visible at night, which is when the moon is up. They're typically visible from about half the Earth's surface. So if you're on the nighttime side of the Earth, when it occurs, you can generally see it. And what you're going to see is the moon is going to pass through the Earth's shadow. And when it passes through the Earth's shadow, it takes on this sort of dusky red color. And that's because of light which is refracted around by the Earth's atmosphere. So lunar eclipses typically last about 2 hours or so. There's a partial phase as it starts to enter into the shadow, and then there's the total phase when it's entirely within the shadow. I saw a note in the chat there. So Brian just signed up for net control for October 1st. Thanks for that. All right, so those are lunar eclipses, and you can see the shadow of the Earth is actually quite large, so the moon is kind of swimming in it for a while. And lunar eclipses tend to be total. They tend to last for quite a while. Now, in contrast with a solar eclipse, these always occur at new moon, which is when the moon passes between the Earth and the sun. And these are only visible generally from a fairly small part of the Earth's surface because the moon's shadow on the Earth is fairly small. So especially to see the total phase, you have to be in exactly the right area. That path is only a matter of miles wide. There is a larger area that we'll see a partial eclipse, but even that's only part of the Earth. Obviously, solar eclipses are seen during the daytime because that's when the sun is up. Interestingly, eclipses occur on other planets too. This is Jupiter, which actually has 4 large moons capable of causing eclipses, and you can see actually 3 different shadows that are cast onto Jupiter right now. So if you were standing at one of those points on Jupiter, well, you wouldn't be standing, you'd be kind of swimming or floating because Jupiter is a gas giant. But if you were at one of those points, you'd be seeing a solar eclipse from Jupiter. So an interesting fact about solar eclipses is that the moon's orbit, well, I should say the moon is about 400 times smaller than the sun is. So the sun's 400 times bigger than the moon, but the sun is also 400 times further away. So when we look at them in the sky, the sun and the moon are almost exactly the same apparent size. It's sort of like a quarter held at arm's length. They're both about the same size in the sky, but the moon's orbit is elliptical. So depending on whether it's closer to us or whether it's further from us, what we call perigee and apogee, the moon actually appears a somewhat different size. It's not a huge effect. It's not the sort of thing that you'd notice unless you really were comparing them side by side. But when people talk about supermoons, that's what they mean. That's when we have a full moon at perigee. So because of this, the moon can appear slightly larger or slightly smaller, which means that when a solar eclipse occurs, depending on how far the moon is, it may or may not be large enough to entirely cover the sun. So if it's a little further away and a little bit too small, you get what's called an annular eclipse, in which there's a thin band of the sun that's visible around the edge. But if the moon is closer, then it's big enough and it actually blocks the entire disk of the sun. And when that happens, what you can see is the outer atmosphere of the sun, which is known as the corona. And in fact, a total solar eclipse is the only time that you can see the solar corona. And that's one of the reasons why people will travel around the world to see total solar eclipses, because that's the only time that you get to see this solar corona. So the eclipse occurring next month will be an annular eclipse because it's happening when the moon is further away from the sun. But there is an eclipse occurring on April 8th, 2024, and that's going to be a total eclipse, and it's actually going to be visible from a large part of the United States, not right here where we are, but a large part of the United States. But now to see the perfect alignment, to see the annular or the total phase, you have to be in just the right place on the Earth. Otherwise, what you're going to see is a partial eclipse, which is where you can see the sun here, and then you can kind of see where the moon is over here. It's not exactly covering the sun because it misses a little bit, just because we're not in exactly the right place. All right, so the 2 upcoming eclipses, these are the paths. So the October 2023 solar eclipse kind of goes this way, kind of comes over the US around Oregon, then travels over Nevada, Utah, New Mexico, and then into Texas. So I know some folks who are headed out into New Mexico to see the annular phase of the eclipse. From where we are in Pennsylvania, we'll see it as a partial eclipse with about a 37% coverage. The 2024 solar eclipse in April, that actually comes up this way, and this actually comes quite a bit closer to us. We're not on the path of totality, but Erie, Pennsylvania is. A large part of Ohio is in the path of totality, parts of upstate New York. So my plan for April is actually to head up someplace in this area. Unfortunately, it's in April, and in the Northeast, the weather is pretty much guaranteed to be crapola. So I don't know what our prospects are. I think some people who are more serious about seeing it, a lot of them are heading down into Texas or even into Mexico where the weather forecast is better. So those are the two upcoming eclipses. We kind of have an embarrassment of riches here with two solar eclipses passing over the US. There aren't going to be any more for quite a few years. I think the next total solar eclipse for us is something like 2045. So it's going to be a while before we get another one passing over the US. So local conditions for October 14th, 2023. I picked this up. This is a site called timeanddate.com. And I looked up the circumstances for Norristown. The maximum eclipse is going to look like this. So about a third of the sun is going to be covered. The partial eclipse is going to begin just after 12 noon, which is 5 minutes after the PA-QSO party begins. Maximum eclipse is about 1:20 p.m. and it's going to end a little after 2:30 p.m. So that's going to be our timing. So as far as viewing a solar eclipse, other than during totality, when you can actually look at the sun with your naked eye, you need to use a special filter. So there's a few different types. For your naked eye, there are these little solar eclipse glasses. I have one sitting here someplace. You can see what that looks like. It cuts down the light passing through by about a factor of 100,000, which actually cuts down the light enough that it's safe to look at. Otherwise, I say you can look at a solar eclipse twice, once with your left eye, once with your right eye, and then you're not going to see it anymore after that, or see anything after that. So you need to have these special glasses in order to view it safely. There are also special filters that are going to fit over telescopes, cameras, and binoculars. There's a special type of filter called the hydrogen alpha filter. These are quite a bit more expensive, but these pass a special wavelength of light, and these are going to show prominences and other features on the sun's surface. So forget about eclipses. These are just cool to look at the sun in general. So you can see some prominences here. You see another little prominence here that actually separated from the sun. You can see some filaments on the sun's surface. So there's a lot of really interesting activity that you can see with the hydrogen alpha filter. If you don't have any filters, all is not lost. You can do something called projection. You can use a telescope and you can actually project an image onto a piece of cardboard. Very important, if you do this, do not look through that telescope. Make sure nobody sticks their eye up to there, because otherwise you're going to get a very painful view. That's a lot of light that's going to go into your eye, and that's bad news. But you can project an image onto a piece of cardboard. Even if you don't have a telescope, you can also use a pinhole. So there's a common way of doing this. You take a cardboard box, you put a pinhole at one end, and then you put a screen, basically a piece of white paper at the other, and you can project an image of the sun. It's just smaller. It's not quite as bright, but that works as well. You can also do something called natural projection. So this, you use something like a tree. And if the tree is, kind of heavily, kind of dense leaves, you get little pinholes between the leaves, and those act as little pinhole cameras, and you can actually get little crescent images of the sun. Now, this does happen on a normal day, but you just don't really notice it as much because the images of the sun are round. It just looks like little circles, but during an eclipse, you get these nice little crescent images. You can also do photography. So here's some interesting pictures. There's a total eclipse. There's an annular eclipse. There was a partial eclipse. Looks like it was right around sunset. So they're getting some interesting features there. This is another image of a total eclipse. This was done with a little bit of processing to bring out some of the prominences near the sun's surface. So you can use a telescope or you can use a camera with a telephoto lens. So the summary here is between about noon and 10:30 or 2:30, we're going to see a partial solar eclipse. And our plan is to have a couple of telescopes set up. I've contacted some people from the Delaware Valley amateur astronomers, and we're going to have a couple of telescopes set up on the field next to the operating area. So you'll be able to go over and see the eclipse. It kind of proceeds slowly over a period of 2.5 hours. So it's nice to go and look, maybe operate for a little bit, then come back and look again. We'll have some eclipse glasses. Maybe we'll do a projection setup. I'm hoping we'll get somebody with a hydrogen alpha telescope, which is really fun. So please plan to join us at the Lower Providence Fire Department for the eclipse viewing, and more importantly, for the PA-QSO party. So that's my little portion of the presentation, just talking about the eclipse and a little bit about what you can expect. Any questions?
Sorry, I'm going to miss it.
Yeah. Will you be able to do any eclipse observing from where you'll be?
I'm gonna be in Washington, DC, indoors.
And that should be, well, indoors is a problem, but DC is not a problem. Yeah, if you have any of these eclipse glasses, let me see. I had a pair here place. Like the one in the picture that I showed. If you have some of those, you can observe. Here's one. Yeah, you can buy these on Amazon. They're a couple bucks each, or you can get a box of them. Yeah, you can't really see much through them like this, but that's because they cut the light down so much. So some of them are
Isn't
kind of
that the point
shiny.
of it?
The other ones. What's that?
The point of it is that a lot of light gets through. If
Yeah,
you
so
see
it brings
stuff
it
through
down
it,
to
it
a
probably
safe
wouldn't be
level.
safe to use.
Yeah, we've also got a welder's glass. Use that too. You have to use the right, I think it's like a number 14 or something like that. There is a particular number of the welder's glass you have to use because they come in different densities. So yeah, whether you're joining us or whether you'll be someplace else, try to get a look at the eclipse.
No eclipse in Sicily, right? No.
This one in October, I don't think you'll see it from there. Yeah, you can look up, you go to that timeanddate.com website, you can see if there'll be anything from there, but I have a feeling you probably won't see it just because you're on the wrong side of the earth. All right. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Herb to tell us a little bit about the PA QSO party.
Well, thank you very much, Jeremy. And that the eclipse stuff sounds super interesting and fun, by the way. So let me just go to the screen that I wanted to go to here. 1 second. The Pennsylvania QSO party. This will be the 67th edition of the PA QSO party, and it is coming up real soon. And there's a live sort of counter on the PA QSO party website. So 17 days, 16 hours, and 57 minutes until the PA QSO party begins. Most of the people that I see here in the Zoom chat or in the Zoom meeting have heard my presentation before. I don't know who's watching on YouTube, if there's anybody new, but I will go over sort of what the PA QSO party is about and, you know, what the rules are and operating procedures, but maybe I won't go into as much detail this year as I have in years past. Anyway, the QSO party is a contest. I don't know if can you see the PowerPoint presentation? Are you able to see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. So it is a contest. So that means that there are point totals kept. So there are people who get a certificate for getting the most points in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania or for each county and in different categories. It's also, I call it a scavenger hunt because you're trying to be able to find on air all of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania. Some of them are very easy to get because there's a lot of hams there active. And some of the counties each year are very much a challenge. Counties like Elk County and some of the small Potter County and some of the smaller counties in central Pennsylvania and the northern tier of the state. There's not a lot of hams out there. And if they are, they may not be active for the entire contest weekend. So getting them can be a challenge. Some people go out on exhibitions and they sort of rent a cabin or something for the weekend, and they operate from those counties knowing that they're going to be highly sought after operators. Well, I think the QSO party is very fun. It is a contest, but it is a lower key contest than some of the other major international contests that are out there. So you can really approach it in a lot of different ways. You can be very serious about it and set up a big gun station, or you can sort of have a low-key approach. And typically MARC, not being a contest club, tends to take a fairly low-key approach. I've heard over the past few months, a lot of people refer to it as Fall Field Day. And that means it's a chance to get together at the Lower Providence Fire Department site. There will be antennas and transmitters set up. People operate, but people also socialize, have snacks, go and view partial solar eclipses, and whatever else is going on at the site. So the QSO party is interesting in that there are two separate operating periods. There is the Saturday operating period, which is 12 hours, noon to midnight Eastern time. And then there is a mandatory downtime Saturday night between midnight and 9 a.m. on Sunday. And then the QSO party picks up again at 9 o'clock in the morning on Sunday and runs until the clock strikes 6 p.m. Eastern, at which point it is over, and then most of the activity drops away on the bands. The QSO party, once again, it's CW and phone operations only. Every year there are people who are asking to please include digital modes, FT8, RTTY, and other digital modes. So far, the organizers of the Pennsylvania QSO party do not want to add those modes. RTTY, I think, would be less of a problem than FT8, but the problem with FT8 is it doesn't support the required contest exchange. And we'll get to the required exchange in a couple of minutes. As mentioned, MARC is setting up at the field day site, beginning at about 9 o'clock for setup operations. Operating can start exactly at 12 noon. Food and refreshments are always available. One thing that I pointed out to Jeremy and those who were here early, you do not have to be at the field day site in order to participate in MARC's QSO party effort. One of the things that the rules do allow is for any station to contribute its individual score to the MARC total combined score, as long as you are a member in good standing of the Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club. When you are finishing your log and submitting it online to the QSO party organizers, there's a field that asks for club, and as long as you write in there Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club, your individual score will count towards MARC total credit. So if the weather isn't good and you decide that rather being out in a field, you'd rather be operating in the comfort of your own home, or if for one reason or another you can't get out to the site, you can still operate and contribute your score to the club. So if you are using the MARC equipment, you'll be operating under the club call sign, Whiskey 3 November Whiskey Alpha, and you'll operate within the band privileges allowed by whoever is the control operator there. So if it's yourself, that's great. Sometimes we have youth operators or non-ham operators. I guess there will be all the amateur astronomers. They can operate, but obviously the normal rules about being under the supervision of a control operator would apply. Certainly, if you bring your own equipment out there, you can use your personal call sign if you like. Jeremy, are you bringing your QRP transmitter?
Probably was planning to do that, but I
Yeah.
might be busy with the telescopes in the afternoon. Yeah, if we do FT8, it would just be kind of for fun since it's not part of the contest.
Right. So the point I was going to make is that any contact that you make, if you operate QRP, QRP contacts can be worth more points than full power contacts. There are basically three power categories: high power, low power, and QRP. If you enter in a QRP category and all of your contacts are QRP, they're worth double what the other power categories would be worth. So even if you made, Jeremy, like 5 or 10 SSB contacts using your QRP rig under the call sign N2ZLQ, you could enter that log, and then those would be double points contributed to the MARC score. And you and once again, people can do that from home as well if they want to. So who should come? People who want to operate outdoors, people who can't operate at their homes because sometimes they have no space, they are in an HOA restricted area, they can't get antennas up, they are in a very high noise environment, maybe in an urban environment, in a city environment, something like that. So definitely being able to operate at the lower noise a site of LPFD and having the antenna up on that high tower, that is a big boost for people who aren't able to put up antennas at their home locations. We certainly would encourage anybody who wants to come and operate CW, because CW contacts are worth 2 points compared to phone contacts which are worth only 1. So CW is always a good idea. We had, I think, Dieter there last year operating CW. I know Dennis won't be with us, but you're another guy that I would hope to have as a CW operator maybe in another year. People who want to just dip their toe into contesting, people who haven't done contesting before and maybe want to see what it's like in a low-key environment. It's really a very sort of heady adrenaline rush when the contest starts and you're running a frequency and you've got a real pile up with people coming fast and furious to do the exchanges. It's a whole lot of fun. And of course, non-hams who want to learn about the hobby. And the QSO party rules last year introduced something, and it's not on their website in a prominent location anymore, but it is still buried there in the rules this year. Non-hams are welcome. Youth operators are welcome in any club or ham that has operations, and they do include non-hams or youth operators. The youth operator or the non-ham gets a participation certificate, and the club also gets sort of a certificate thanking them for Elmering the non-hams or youth operators. So that's definitely a nice thing to have. Originally, I had thought we were going to have Boy Scouts on site, and that would have been a fun thing to sort of get some of them on the air for part of the contest, and then get them their certificates and the club's Elmering certificate. But I guess that's a little bit too much to have astronomers and Boy Scouts, but certainly the astronomers, many of them may be non-hams, and they would qualify us for that certificate. Okay, what bands are we allowed to use? We are allowed to use pretty much all of the regular ham bands except for the WARC bands. So we cannot operate on 12 meters, 17 meters. Sorry, Dennis. I know that's your new favorite band. No operations on 17, on 30, or on 60. However, you can work on all of the other HF bands, anywhere from 160 to 10. If you're feeling frisky and you want to try 6 meters, have at it, because that's allowed. And certainly the VHF and UHF bands are allowed 2 meters and 70 centimeters. We are not, the contacts made through satellites and repeaters do not count for QSO party credit, but direct contacts, point-to-point contact on the VHF and UHF bands do count. So certainly if you've got whether SSB or FM, and you want to make a few contacts on 2 meters or 70 centimeters, those definitely count. And I don't think anybody's got the equipment for it, but you can do the LF bands. If you've got it, I don't think there's going to be so much activity on them, because if you have the equipment, you're probably going to be one of the only ones. But certainly those are allowed bands, 630 meters and 2200 meters. Can you use repeaters, Echolinks, Wires X? No, you cannot. 3 different power categories, as I mentioned. High power, low power is anywhere between 5 watts and 100 watts. And then QRP is defined at less than 5 watts. You don't have to stress yourself measuring PEP or ERP. It's power measured at transmitter output. Very forgiving there, just whatever you think you're putting out of your rig. That is your power category. There are different location categories. There is home, portable, mobile, rover, and county line. Home is a fixed location. So if you're operating from your house, if we had a club shack that was a fixed permanent installation and we operated from there, that would be considered a home station. A portable is you set it up in a single county with tear down after the contest is over. So for example, if one of us came with our personal equipment set up at the field day site, operated under our own call sign, and then tore down on Sunday night and went home, that would be considered portable. Mobile is a station capable of operating while in motion. There are going to be a few mobile stations always, and there's a certain band window that people are encouraged to stay out of, and that's it's not really reserved, but it's encouraged. That is the sort of the band section where you'll find the mobile operators. Then there's a rover station, and typically a rover station is a station that will move from one place to another, set up on site, operate for a little while, tear down the equipment, and then move to another site. And the rover stations are pretty important and useful because there's some guys who will go and on a route or a loop pretty much through some of the rarer counties. I know Kilo 3 Alpha Romeo Lima does that every year. K3 ARL, he'll go around in several different counties over the course of the weekend. He'll operate for a few hours in each. And that he's a really good way to pick up some of the harder to get counties if you happen to catch him in the county that you need. Last year, I entered in the rover category because if you are operating, notice portable is a single county. Last year, I operated at the field day site on the Saturday, that's Montgomery County, and I went to Ridley Creek State Park on the Sunday, that's Delaware County. Because I was in 2 separate counties, none of the other categories worked for me, so I was technically a rover station, even though I was pretty much fixed all day for each of those days, but in different counties. And then there's something called a county line station. County line stations are neat. That is if you are within, I think it's 100 yards. I don't know the exact distance, but 100 yards of the county border. Then you are considered a county line station, and contacts with you give credit to both counties. So I live about 3.5 blocks, maybe 4 blocks from the county line between Delaware County and Montgomery County. If I wanted to, I could take my equipment to County Line Road and maybe set myself up in the parking lot of Carlino's or something if they allowed me to do it. And then I would be a county line station, and people would get both DCO and MGY in the same QSO. And so working county line stations is kind of fun because really you're getting double credit for the single contact. Then again, 2 operator categories, lots of way to slice this. So multi-operator is any station that is operating under a single call sign with 2 or more operators. And then single operator stations are one operator that is using their own personal call sign. So obviously W3 NWA is a multi-operator station. Since there will be two or more, there will be several operators there. Again, phone allowed. That means, so that's another category, another way to slice and dice. All QSOs are in voice mode. In the phone category, it could be any combination of SSB, FM, any other allowable voice mode. CW, obviously all QSOs using CW. And then there is the mixed category. If you operate all CW and your log contains one SSB contact, that is then considered a mixed category operation, and you get put into the mixed category. And this all sounds complicated and confusing, but you don't so much have to worry about it until the back end when you're submitting your log. And one of the reasons why I think they have 3 different entry mode categories, 3 different power categories, all those different station categories, is because there's a state leader and a county leader in each of those categories. So it's a way for the QSO party to be able to give award certificates to lots and lots of different operators. It's not like, okay, if you're not a big gun contesting station, you've got no chance. No, because you might out on top on the mixed category in Montgomery County, or the low power phone category in Montgomery County. So that is what's nice about having all of these different ways to slice and dice the operation, is it means lots of people are eligible for a certificate. So club station, multi-operator, low power, probably either phone or mixed. I assume it's going to be mixed, but it might just be phone. And again, as I mentioned, you can operate from pretty much anywhere you want using your personal call sign and have your personal scores consolidated with MARC's club score. A couple of years ago, I asked one of the administrators of the contest whether a MARC member who was physically located in Florida or elsewise out of state could contribute their personal scores to the MARC club score. And the answer came back, absolutely, as long as they are a member of the club in good standing. So that means that in theory, Dennis, you could operate Italy 9 stroke K3DS if you want, and still have your score into the club contest. No pressure there, and I'm sure that's exactly what you want to do on your vacation in Italy is do the Pennsylvania QSO party. But anyway, the option is there for you if you want. So how do we do contest? This is true for contesting in general. Basically, there's 2 methods of making contacts. One of them is called running, and that's where you park yourself on an open frequency, and good luck finding an open frequency. Park yourself there, call CQ, wait for replies, and then give the contest exchange. And the other way to do it is search and pounce, and that's when you basically tune up and down the band, looking for stations who are calling CQ and give the exchange. And, it's kind of nice, especially with a multi-operator, multi-transmitter setup, to have some people running and some people hunting, because that you really want to do both, especially when you're looking for those rare stations. Just a note about contest etiquette, and this is a little bit sometimes off-putting if you're new to contesting. We were all taught when we got our licenses, and it's drummed into us that before you start operating on the frequency, you're supposed to ask a couple of times if the frequency is in use and listen for an answer before you start transmitting. Sad to say that in contests, people don't do that. They just tune to whatever frequency they want. And if they don't really hear a bigger gun than themselves on the frequency. They'll just jump on and start operating. So what often happens to low power stations like ourselves is we may park ourselves on a frequency, but we may get stepped on and be forced to move more than once during the contest period. It's not something I love, but it is what it is. So what is the contest exchange? Every contest has its own particular exchange. This is the information that you have to give and receive to be considered a valid contact for purpose of contest credit. You've got to give 3 pieces of data in the Pennsylvania QSO party. You have to give your call sign, for example, W3NWA or K3YR or however you're operating. You must give your county using ideally using the standard abbreviations. For example, Mike Golf Yankee for Montgomery County. You can say Montgomery County if you want, that's perfectly fine. But a lot of people will be giving the 3-letter abbreviations. That is a crucial piece of data. You have to give it. And Pennsylvania is a little bit unusual. We have to give a sequence number, a serial number for each contact. So your very first contact of the contest would be number 1, number 2 for your second contact, and so on and so on. The logging software helps you to do that because it keeps track of the sequence number, advancing it incrementally each time you log a contact. You do not need to give a signal report. Signal report not needed. If you are giving a signal report in a contest, everybody's 5'9". And there's a reason for that. It's not flattery. It's just that the software usually defaults to giving a 5'9" for each contact. And if you have to go change it to be 4'3" or 5'6" or something, it wastes people's time, and people want to streamline the process. Everybody's 5'9", but in the Pennsylvania QSO party, you don't need to give a signal report. You do need to give the sequence number. Also, whatever you're giving, you have to get. So you need to receive that corresponding information from the other station. So you need their contact. It might be Delta Charlie Oscar for Delaware County, BUX for Bucks County. You need to get that and log that in the appropriate field. And the reason why this is very important is that when you submit the log files to the contest, their back-end software matches the logs against each other. And those 3 details, call sign, band, sequence number, and county information has to match. Otherwise, that contact is disallowed. You don't get a penalty for it, but you lose the point. So the information you need from the other station, I said you need their county, but that's only true for Pennsylvania stations. For stations in the United States, or Canada, but outside Pennsylvania, you need their section, not necessarily their state, but their section. So most of the time that's coextensive. That's the same as the state or the province, but some larger states, New York, California, Texas, are subdivided. So there's Northern New York, Eastern New York, there's different sections within New York. You've got to get the section abbreviation. Same thing for Canada. And then if it is, if you're working Dennis in Sicily, you don't need to write Italy. You just write DX in the exchange. All stations outside of the US, Canada are considered DX. You don't need their country. You can write it somewhere else if you want. But in the exchange field, the proper abbreviation there will be DX. So the sequence number is sometimes when you're working people out of state, they don't always know about this. They may just come across you and they want to work you. and you ask them for their sequence number, and they say, what sequence number? They don't know what you're talking about, so you have to hold their hand a little bit. And generally, if they have no idea what you're talking about, you can say, is this your first QSO in the contest today? Yes, I didn't even know it was a contest. I just heard you calling CQ. Okay, then your sequence number is 1. Thank you very much. And then, you know, you're done with them. You may just have to sort of pull that out of them. Obviously, anybody who's actively participating, they know they've got to give you the sequence number. Again, there's a list of standardized abbreviation for each of the 67 counties in Pennsylvania, as well as for the list of ARRL sections and Canadian sections. Canada section abbreviations changed in 2023, by the way. They renamed Golf Tango Alpha Greater Toronto Area has been renamed to Golf Hotel Golden Horseshoe. And don't ask me why it's now called Golden Horseshoe. But if you hear people saying Golden Horseshoe, that's what used to be GTA Greater Toronto. We'll have copies of the lists at the field day site. Here's the Pennsylvania abbreviations. Again, you can download this in lots of places, but including on the QSO Party website. Here is a list of the, this is an old list of the ARRL and Canadian sections. As I said, Canada changed, so GTA is now GH. Around our area, the most common ones, obviously, Charlie Hotel Echo, Delta Charlie Oscar, Mike Golf Yankee, and Papa Hotel India. So your sample exchange, you're just going to call CQ, give your call sign. Somebody will give their call sign, and then you just tell them sequence number and county. They're going to do the same. Thank you very much. And then you move on to the next one. For a US station, for example, somebody might tell you 002 New York, right? So sequence number 2, New York. Well, you need to say, well, thank you, but I need your section. Where are you in New York? And then they'll say, okay, Echo November Yankee. They may not know what section they're in, especially newer hams or people who don't do a lot of contesting. They may not know their section. You can usually figure it out. I wouldn't waste a whole lot of time looking at it. Maybe make a note in the log field, and you can sort of go back and add that later. As I said, that is, we already talked about. So New Jersey has 2 sections, Northern and Southern. There's Eastern and Western Mass. There's 4 sections in New York. And as I said, 4 sections in the province of Ontario. So those are the ones you're going to get most, I think, during the QSO Party. California, Florida, and Texas, if we're on the higher bands, maybe during the afternoon hours on either Saturday or Sunday, yes, you might get some of those stations, but the real money bands for this contest are going to be 40 and 80 in the evening, late afternoon and evening hours. And so New Jersey, Massachusetts, New York, Ontario are going to be states where you're going to get a lot of contacts from. Again, section for the Canadian, very important. And now Golden Horseshoe replaces GTA.
Golden Horseshoe, I thought the guy was at a casino.
Yeah, I have no idea why they call it that. There's probably some weird Canadian reason why.
Yeah, that's what the area is called. It's kind of the hook that goes around sort of the western and the northern coast of Lake Ontario.
Is it really?
It's called the Golden. Yeah, that's what the area is called.
All right. Well, see, I always learn something new, and now I know. Okay, so if you get a DX caller, DX is simply what you put there. He may tell you Slovak Republic. This guy, I use this call sign because he participates in every single North American contest. I always hear him, OM2VL. It is almost certain that if you're on the air for any length of time, he's going to call. He's smart enough to probably say DX, but like somebody might just say Slovak Republic or Italy or whatever. Thank you very much, but you're just going to log them as DX. All right, always give your sequence number, always get the other guy's sequence number, always give your county, always get their county. If they are outside Pennsylvania, you do not need their county, but I put an asterisk there. Why did I put an asterisk there? Because we are not the only game in town. Nevada, Arizona, and South Dakota are holding QSO parties on the same weekend as we do. This happens every year. These four states always go on the same weekend in October. You may well get contacts from one of those three states. So you need what you need for Pennsylvania QSO party credit, but that same contact counts for them for their QSO party. And so Nevada station is going to give you their county because they need to under their rules. And that Nevada station doesn't really care that you're in Montgomery County, but they need to know that you're in Echo Papa Alpha, Eastern Pennsylvania. So you're going to have to give maybe a little bit more information to them. And then you're going to record them either as Nevada or as you are allowed this year. The Pennsylvania changed their rules to say if you record their county, you will get credit for it. So Nevada counties count. You don't have to write November Victor. You can write their specific county in the field, and that will still count for credit. But they don't use sequence numbers in those states. So you need to make sure they do give you a sequence number. So that exchange with those three states can get a little bit tricky, but nothing that we can't manage. Okay, scoring. Why is all this stuff important? Well, it's a contest, and contests keep score. You certainly don't have to aim for a high score. You can just have fun. But some people, I like to try and see as best I can do during the contest. I kind of try and always improve on my score from the year before. I know I'm not going to win Pennsylvania. There's a lot of big guns out there. But, I might win Delaware County, I might win Montgomery County, and that's something that I like to do. So how does the scoring work? You get 1 point for every voice QSO, and if you're operating purely QRP, then it's 2 points for every voice QSO. You get 2 points for every CW QSO. And once again, if it's CW QRP exclusively, then it's 4 points. It's doubled for QRP operation. You get a 200-point bonus if you make a QSO with the bonus station. Normally, there's one bonus station. This year, there are 3 different bonus stations, and that's because they couldn't find a club that wanted to be the bonus station in the initial go-round. So they opened it up and they decided to take several different bonus stations. And they will be KA3EEO, KW3A, who I believe is right in Montgomery County, and N3AAA. They will all be bonus stations. They're worth 200 points. And then here's the fun thing about contesting. Your score is increased by multipliers. So you get a multiplier for every Pennsylvania county you work. So you work one county, it's multiplied by 1, which is the same. You get 2 counties, all of a sudden your QSO points are doubled. You get all 67 counties, you're taking your QSO point total and multiplying by 67. If you get all of those different states and ARRL sections in the US, Canadian sections, those add to your multiplier total as well. So you're looking for 2 things. You're looking for raw points, as many contacts as you can get, but each contact that is a new multiplier has a fantastic effect on your score because towards the end of the contest, as you have maybe 60, 70 multipliers, each incremental contact is now worth 70 points instead of just 1. So you can really start seeing your score increase as you get these multipliers. Sadly, DX, there's only one multiplier for DX. We log as DX, and then that's it. We don't get a separate multiplier for each country we work. So much as I otherwise normally like to chase DX, during this particular contest, there's no point wasting time trolling for lots and lots of DX contacts. You'd be better off looking for the different sections in Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, California, where you can add lots and lots of multipliers. And California is subdivided, I don't know, into 6 or 7 different sections. So there's a lot of multipliers available out in Whiskey 6 if propagation permits. So once again, you just multiply your total number of contacts by your total number of multipliers, and that gets your score. Tips and tricks. If you want the Pennsylvania counties, Erie is probably only about 300 miles away, and that's about as far as you can get from our operating location. So 20 meters, 15 meters, 10 meters, probably not your money bands for getting all 67 counties in Pennsylvania. You can get contacts on those bands, but you're probably more looking at 40 and 80 for the Pennsylvania counties. So you're going to be using those higher bands looking for out-of-state multipliers, the West, the South, the Midwest. You're going to be looking for that, especially in the afternoon hours. Try to get as many multipliers from out West as you can. You want to get at least 1 DX contact in the log. And then as the day progresses and we're looking at late afternoon, evening, and into the night hours, 40, 80, and if you want to operate 160, those are the bands where you're going to be getting all those Pennsylvania counties that are going to help with lots and lots of multipliers. 80 meters really starts to be hopping on the Saturday from sunset to midnight. It's very, very hard to find an operating frequency on 80 meters during the evening hours on the Saturday. That is definitely your money band. Duplicates, you do not get credit for a duplicate.
Herb, there's always room on CW, believe me.
Well, and that's why we need you. Does anybody else operate CW in the group?
Let me do this too. Can I just interrupt a second here, Herb?
Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, I've been bringing my bencher paddle for Dieter and I for field days and whatever, and I'm not going to bring it. So if anybody wants to operate CW, you better dig up an iambic paddle somewhere, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, last year Dieter operated CW, but nobody else did. I certainly am not competent to do that. Certainly not in a contest environment, but it is great to have it. But once again, for those who are watching on YouTube, you can operate CW from your house using your own call sign and contribute your credit to the MARC total score. And so, I very much invite anybody who is watching or listening and who's not on this Zoom chat to consider doing that, especially if you are a CW operator. You can get credit. Go ahead. Oh, I thought somebody was going to say something. You can get credit for working the same station twice if you are working them either on different bands or on different modes. So you operate, you work K3DS voice, and then you on 80 meters, and then you work K3DS CW on 80 meters. Both of those count for credit. You work on 40 meter SSB and 80 meter SSB. Both of those count for credit. You only get 1 multiplier for that. So you're not getting you work a station in Ohio and you get the Ohio multiplier on 40 meters, and then you work them later on 80. You've only got Ohio once, but you can get the raw point for working that same station. twice, as long as it's on different bands. You don't get credit for the duplicate contact. However, my advice is don't refuse to work the dupe. And the reason, there's a couple of reasons for that is, first of all, it takes more time to say, sorry, you're a dupe. And he says, am I really? And yeah, I worked you at such and such time. That all takes more time than just logging him and moving on. Just log the dupe. There's no penalty for working dupes. The other reason to work the dupe is one or both of you may have made a mistake in a log entry. So you may be having the earlier QSO invalidated by the back-end software. You might have recorded the band wrong, the time wrong, the sequence number wrong, the exchange wrong. Work him as a dupe if he calls you again. And now maybe at least one of those two contacts is going to count for credit. And if there is a duplicate, the processing software will just disregard it. You don't get penalized for it. You just don't get double credit. I mentioned this about the awards for encouraging participation by non-hams and young people. This was on last year's website. It isn't there this year in such a prominent place, but it is on the website buried somewhere, the same text. So all non-hams, licensed hams under the age of 25 and their Elmers will get certificates and will be noted in the final results report from the QSO party. That report used to come out in December or January. This year it was springtime before they issued the awards and reports, but hey, they're all volunteers, so I don't criticize. Spotting. Using DX Cluster, DX Summit, and other web-based spotting networks, unlike many other contests, like Field Day doesn't allow spotting, right? A lot of ARRL contests do not allow spotting. Pennsylvania QSO party, as I said, it's low key. It's the friendly QSO party. They do allow the use of spotting networks. You are even allowed to self-spot. So if you are going to be running a particular frequency, you do want to go on one of the popular websites and spot yourself there, what frequency you're on and what county you're in. That is going to draw traffic. There is also a dedicated spots page for the Pennsylvania QSO party. It is mentioned on the QSO party website. There's a link to it. You want to use the spotting network to try and find if somebody is activating a rare county, because once again, some of those rarer counties are hard to get, and the ham they only be maybe one or two hams in there, and if they go QRT, you're not going to get that county. Usually, oddly enough, Pike County doesn't usually have many people activating it. It is close enough to us that they're usually pretty loud when they are activating, but they often have a huge pile up because there's usually only one guy running Pike County. Again, your score will be counted only if you both correctly log your contacts and you submit a valid log to the contest administrators within 7 days of the end of the contest. Logging is important. Log submission is important. If you're operating at the field day site using the club call sign W3NWA, you really don't have to worry too much about logging. You record the contacts using the software. The software does most of the work, and then the club will be the one to submit that log to the website. By the way, Dennis, since you are not here, who is going to be doing the log for the club? You're on mute.
Jeremy has the club's computers. Jeremy, even if you're only going to use 2 computers, make sure you use the switch. That's how the software is set up, even with 2 computers.
So the PXO party software is network 2?
Yes, absolutely.
So you just plug them both into the switch and it'll automatically connect?
Yes, use two computers, a switch. If you use one computer, you don't need the switch, but that's obvious.
Okay.
But you can use up to all three. I don't know, it's up to you how many you want to bring or whatever.
So
Are
all
they
three
net-
have the QSO party software?
I would bring all the laptops. The one that's labeled server is usually indicated the one where we've actually put the file. And then the clients then basically use that file in the network to record.
So Dennis, does that software keep track of the sequence number from
Yes.
contact to contact? So we don't have to do
Even
separate,
across the network.
all across the network. So if you have contact number one and simultaneously Jeremy is logging the next one, he'd be number two, and you would know your number three in the next one.
That's right.
That's excellent. And then Jeremy, are you going to handle exporting the Cabrillo file and uploading it to the website?
I mean, I'm not 100% sure how to do the Cabrillo stuff, but we can figure it out after.
There's a help file on the N3FJP website. Basically he's already got this all thought out.
Jeremy, I can help you with that, but basically,
Sure.
usually it's just a command export to .cbr, and it's easy. It depends what logging
Correct. Figure
software
it
you're
out.
using, but the big contest software all allows you to do that. That one, and then the N1 MM also have that option. Just export as Cabrillo, and then it's just a question of walking through the questions on the QSO Party website and uploading that file.
Now, one question at serial numbers, are we going to do separate serial numbers by band? Because
Well, I
my
don't
fear
think
is always that you're trying to make a contact and then you will give out a sequence number. And then in the time that it takes you to log it, somebody else makes a contact on another band and gives that serial number away.
Well, I don't think they would do, because I mean, I've not used this software, but I think what's going to happen, if I'm correct, is that when you type in their call sign, it's going to give you the next available sequence number. And when the other guy types in a different call sign on his station, he's not going to get the same sequence number as you. I mean, Dennis, do you know how? Am I right about how it works?
Exactly right. That's why you're using the you're actually logging onto the server, so the server is keeping track of everything. And in their network version, the clients basically grab a sequence number from the file that's written on the server. That's what happens. Absolutely.
Right. So I don't think you're ever
if
going
you-
to get two. You're never going to get two identical sequence numbers. It could be that you get a gap, so that you give up number 6, and then maybe he has some kind of busted QSO and doesn't complete it, and you're getting number 8, and nobody ever gets number 7. But there's no problem having a gap in the sequence numbers. You just don't want a duplicate sequence number or a wrong sequence number.
Question,
Because I know some, yeah.
what about the people who are working at someplace other than the field day site? They're not necessarily going to have access to that network.
Well, that's right.
They'll be
but,
generating their own sequence numbers.
well, that's right. So Brian, for example, if you're at home or in Washington, D.C., as the case may be, and you're operating Alpha Alpha 3 Bravo Kilo, you give out your own sequence numbers.
Okay.
So
And then when they merge them, the merging software at the contest level will take care of all that
well,
reconciliation.
no, they're not going to merge the logs. They're going to take your they're going to take your score and just add it to our score. So in fact, you asked a really good question, because it's not just sequence numbers, right? It's also dupes.
Right.
So the
Getting to that
rules,
next.
the rules permit you to operate under the same call sign from different physical locations, as long as you're in the same county. So in theory, and you could operate as W3 NWA from somewhere else in Montgomery County under using your own transmitter, right? But while you could do that in theory, I think that would be disastrous because there'd be no way to keep track of sequence numbers and there'd be no way to keep track of dupes. And I think it's far, far better to operate, if you're not going to be at the field day site, then just operate under your personal call sign. And number one, it's easier. It's easier because you don't have to keep track of what the other station sequence numbers are. You obviously won't have any visibility into dupes and not dupes. And to be honest, it's going to mean a higher score because if you are at the site operating W3 NWA, you can only work, for example, K3DS one time because on a given band, because otherwise they're a dupe. But W3 NWA can work him once from the field day site, and you, Brian, can work him once under your own call sign from somebody else. And those points just get added together using simple addition at the back end. Your log and Mark's log, they just take your point score and they add them together.
So if my county's contacted, complement the county's contacted at the MARC site, and that union represents the entire state, do we get credit for all of them?
No, because combining it is going to count for points total. So that is one of the things that helped. For example, last year, Jeremy showed the certificate. Jeremy, can you hold up the certificate again, please? This is my prop. Jeremy showed the certificate that we got first place Montgomery County club stations, right? Well,
Right.
part of that is because several individual operators contributed to Mark's score. I worked on the field day site using my own call K3YR on the Saturday, and then I went and did a double dip with a POTA activation on the Sunday at Ridley Creek State Park. I took my point totals and I uploaded my log. I mentioned Mark as my club, and so whatever I did got simply arithmetically added to whatever Mark did at the site. And I wasn't the only one to add a personal log up to, I know, Jim, you added your log. And I know there were a few others who were not even at the field day site and were not on the meeting. I know they did also. So all of that helps the point total and helps the club sort of, again, I don't think we're going to win the state, but it's nice to have bragging rights, especially vis-a-vis some of the other local clubs, to see who did better. And, every log from every MARC member counts to our total point total, even if you're in Washington, D.C. or Sicily or operating in Ridley Creek State Park or anywhere else.
Okay, I have one other question, and it's really directed to Jim. You need to tell me when you're going to stop by the house to pick up the equipment.
I thought we decided 9:30 on the 9th.
Okay, that's confirmed?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I hadn't confirmed that. It's
No.
you
Yeah,
said the
that
9th?
isn't that what we decided? I don't have my
No, it was the
calendar in
8th.
front.
It's
Is
the
that a
8th.
Sunday?
Sunday is the 8th.
Okay, well, the 8th then. I didn't have my calendar in front of me.
Okay, well, yeah, I have it on my calendar, but that was temporary.
Yeah,
We
it's
needed to
good.
confirm, and that's what I'm doing now. So
Yeah,
consider it
confirmed.
confirmed.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I had. Thank you. Nice job, Herb.
Okay. Well, thank you. Yeah, I think so. We've talked about logging. I don't know how to close the chat window now that I was looking at while you guys were talking, but I wonder if escape will do it. No, escape. Yeah, that just brought me out of this, but okay. So log submission, we've beat that to death. For those of you who are operating at home, and not using the software at MARC, your first decision is paper log versus computer log. Some people really like logging on paper. God bless them. There's advantages to that. You don't have a learning curve. You don't have anything to set up. You don't care if your computer crashes, and it's free. The problem with a paper log is that in order to get credit, you have to submit a log in digital format, in Cabrillo format, which is the standard for contest operations in pretty much every contest worldwide. That means you have to retype your log. That is not too bad if you have only a couple dozen QSOs, but if you're on the air for a few hours and you have hundreds of contacts, it is tedious to retype all of that stuff, and the retyping also introduces mistakes. Also, if you are paper logging, it is harder to detect incorrectly copied call signs. If you are using electronic logging and you've got internet access, the software will look up the call sign, and if somebody is telling you they are in Erie County and the software is telling you they're in Nevada, you need to ask if you've copied the call sign correctly. And they may say, yeah, I'm in Erie County for the QSO party, and that's fine. But you may have gotten a letter or something wrong in the call sign. And so the software logging helps you detect that a little bit better. Also, the other advantage of software is if you've got the computer connected to the radio, the software will know exactly what frequency you're operating on. So you won't mess things up by forgetting to take note of band changes and logging contacts as 40 meters when they're really on 80 meters. And also getting the time right. One of the most common logging errors is people log on paper in Eastern time, but the log needs to be in the UTC, and people always screw that up. They do that in contests, they do that in POTA. It's it's human nature. The computer will log your contacts in UTC as it's supposed to be. And then if you want, once you've got the electronic log, you can export it to QRZ.com, Logbook of the World, on any of the other sites that do electronic QSL. Again, the software will also automatically advance the sequence number and pre-fill your county information so that you don't have to type in your own county when you're generating your log for submission. And you definitely want software that allows you to export easily into Cabrillo format. The disadvantages of computer logging is you're kind of SOL if the computer freezes or crashes in the middle of operating, and then you really have to scramble. You sometimes have a steeper learning curve depending on the software you're using. And depending on your operating system on your computer and what rig you're using, you may need to be downloading drivers or configuring COM ports or whatever to get your radio to talk to your computer. And if you're operating battery power portable, one of your limiting factors is then laptop battery life. And certainly last year when I was out at Ridley Creek, I was logging computer for a while, and then I had to switch to pen and ink because my laptop battery did not survive the whole day's activation. So as Dennis mentioned earlier, the site laptops will be loaded, N3 FJP software. There's licenses are in place. Here's a website for the software, n3fjp.com. Tells you how to use it. I've never used it. Those who aren't familiar with the software should probably plan to come to the site a little bit early just to make sure they're familiar with how to use it before the contacts start coming in fast and furious. Go ahead.
Jeremy, since you have everything, I would take 15 minutes and fire up 2 computers and just play with the software. And I think you'll see real straightforward. We used it on field days, so it's not, it's the same software basically.
Yeah, I'll try playing around with it. I'll try to break it by like starting a contact on one and then quickly
Yeah,
putting one in on
you can do
another.
that and just delete the file later. That's fine.
Yeah.
And if you have any
And that's just
questions,
what I'm
let me
thinking,
know.
because sometimes you get stuck in a loop with somebody where you're going back and forth 6 times for them to get the sequence number. And then by the time they finally get it, you discover that somebody else made a contact on the other station.
I still can't
Make
see
sure
a
that doesn't-
scenario where that happens, because when you start the next QSO, one machine will go out and get a sequence number. And if you don't use it, then basically it's
Okay.
just sitting
So the two computers would never be offered the same number at the same
because
time.
they're using the same file.
Yeah, it's a server.
Yeah, they're using the
Now,
server.
is it a problem if this sequence, if they're out of sequence, like if contact
No.
2 was made before 1?
No, and there's no problem if there's a gap in sequence numbers. The main thing is that your log that shows that he's contact sequence 2 for you, his log has to show that you gave him sequence number 2. That's what
Okay.
matters.
So like,
And
if
obviously you don't
make-
want to have 2 number 2s.
Yeah, so if you make contact number 2 and then I make contact number 1 after that, that's fine.
No problem.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean that is probably not going to happen by minutes, but it may happen by seconds. If you're having to repeat the exchange because of band conditions or something like that. That's
Yeah, it's just
That's right.
sometimes it takes a
Obviously,
minute or
that-
so to get the contact through.
Yeah, obviously networking with one file gets rid of a whole bunch of problems, because if you had 2 computers with 2 files, you're SOL at that point. But
That's
what
right.
a lot of
Then
people-
you'd have to be doing it by band.
what a lot of people do is, because the sequence numbers don't mean anything. Some people start like one computer from 1 up and the other one start from 200 up or something like that. That's all legal too.
Yep, that is.
Yeah.
That is. And then you really freak people out in the first hour of the QSO party when you give them sequence number 573 and they like wet their pants.
I usually do that. I used to do that on a VHF contest, make a contact and tell them you're my 2,454th contact. Then they fall off the chair.
Yeah, pretty much. All right. So just for those of you who are going to be operating at a different site. So, this may be Brian, this may be others who are watching on YouTube. There is other logging software available. N3 FJP, you had to pay for licenses, right, Dennis? Well,
It was a nominal fee. It wasn't too much.
right.
In fact,
But
quite
there's-
honestly, I think the guy only wants like $6 or something for a license for an individual contest.
All right.
I just bought the full package for like $50, and he took off the $18 that I already spent.
Okay. Well, if you don't want to spend $6, and you're using Windows, N1MM Logger Plus is probably the single most popular contest logging software for the Windows operating environment, and it is free. And you can download it at there's the web address there on screen. Last year's presentation, I told you I'd never used it and I couldn't speak to it. But this past weekend, I did use it in the CQWW RIDI DX contest. It is fantastic software. And it does exactly what Dennis is describing. It's basically networked so that in real time, each operator is seeing exactly what it's keeping one log, and all the network computers see that same log. So for example, Jeremy, you log a contact, immediately it pops up on my screen that you've logged it. So I can see what you're doing, how well you're doing, if you've gotten a multiplier. It also keeps track of multipliers that you don't have. So it can tell you these are the multipliers you still need, and it integrates with some of the spotting networks so that it can not only tell you this is a multiplier you need, it can tell you they are on the air at the moment on this frequency and here's how to find them. So it's a great piece of software, and a lot of contesters use it. So If you're a Windows user and you're going to be operating the QSO party from your home or any other location other than the field day site, you're not going to go wrong with N1MM. I am a Mac user, so this software doesn't support Mac, so I've never downloaded it. I do have a Windows computer in my home, and I'm wondering if I'm going to download N1MM on it. But I historically am a Mac user, so here is options for Mac OS. Ordinarily, for my everyday logging, I use MacLogger DX. That is paid software. It's a one-time $99 license fee. I like that software a lot for normal everyday logging purposes. However, I don't like it for contesting because it, for some odd reason, does not support the direct export of log into Cabrillo format. You need to go through multiple steps to export your log as a Cabrillo file if you've logged in MacLogger DX. So I don't do it. For contesting, I use something called rumlog-ng. Rumlog-ng is freeware. It is very easy to use. The it was developed, I think, by some guy in Germany. And the user manual looks like it was written in German and run through Google Translate into English. So it leaves a little bit to desire, but it's easy enough to set it up and use it. You can find it on the Mac App Store if you want it. And they have a configuration file predefined for the Pennsylvania QSO party. So they know what exchange information you need. They know what the multipliers are. And it's very, very simple to set that software up to run as your logging software. And then you can export from there directly into a Cabrillo file for the contest, and you can also export into an ADIF, an ADIF file, to log your contacts on QRZ or Logbook of the World or other electronic logging sites. Okay, again, Jeremy is going to be handling log submission. Jeremy, you and I can talk in real time after the contest to sort of coordinate how to get that uploaded. But if you're operating at home, or even if you're at the site using your own equipment and call sign, then you will have to submit your own log. So very simple, export your log into Cabrillo format. That takes a second. It's a drop-down menu, export as Cabrillo. You just do that. There's a couple of questions that they will ask you. About your power level, your operating category. Those are headers on the Cabrillo log file. So you fill them in as fields, and then that generates the Cabrillo file with the proper headers. And then you go to the paqso.org stroke log -submission.html. There's a link. You don't have to remember this. Just go to the website and look for the link of log submission. And there's several questions that they will ask you. For example, did you operate in-state or out of state? If you operated in-state, fixed or portable, or were you mobile, rover, or county line? You go through fixed or portable. You put your name, your email, your call sign. And then here at the bottom, it says club, no abbreviations. So instead of writing MARC, you write Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club. I think no abbreviations because sometimes clubs have the same abbreviation but different names. So it's not like they're going to give you ding you for if you get a hyphen in the wrong place in MARC, but they want it spelled out. And then
if you Google MARC, you'll see there's like 20 different clubs that are MARC.
Exactly. So that's why you want to write Mid-Atlantic Amateur Radio Club there. And then by doing that, and then you pick your category here, entry division, and you can see there's 11 different categories. So for example, I was single op, low power phone, which is about midway down the left column. The club will be multi-op low power. And then what county you have to specify here for the log. So again, the club is going to be looking down the bottom of this middle column, Montgomery, Chester County in the first column, Delaware County, the bottom of the left column. And then you have to tick this box, which is you swearing to the organizers that the log is true and accurate and you didn't cheat and you didn't fake contacts and all of that. And then you do choose file. You navigate through your own computer's file system to find the Cabrillo file, and you upload it. Now, see that text in yellow? Please select a file with TXT or LOG extension. So Cabrillo files, when your software generates it, have the extension .cbr for Cabrillo. And for some strange reason, the QSO party will not be able to handle an upload with a .cbr extension. So you just go into your Finder or Windows File Explorer or whatever it's called, and just change the name of the file so that instead of ending with CBR, it ends with TXT. And it's a plain text file, and then you just upload it. A miscellaneous, every year, there is a pre-party net on 80 meters. So that will be at 8:00 p.m. Eastern time on Friday, the 13th of October, Friday the 13th, lucky day. And that net will meet on 3910 plus or minus. They basically use that as a last minute opportunity for people to ask questions in real time of the contest organizers. Once again, the rules allow spotting. You can use any of the popular DX spotting clusters like DX Summit, DX Watch. There's also a dedicated spot page. Here's the link to it. You will find it on the QSO Party website. And that's it. Have fun and hope we get a great score.
All right. Thanks, Herb. That was great. Any questions for Herb? All right. So I've got a list of a couple of organizational points to get out. So the setup time will be 9 a.m. on Saturday. Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't see any reason to change that. It usually works for us for field day. We do have to be set up a little bit earlier because we start at noon, but I think we won't have quite enough to deal with since we won't have the generator and things like that to worry about.
Right.
So Jim, you're going to pick up the club equipment at Brian's.
Yes.
Do you think you're going to bring it up on Friday afternoon or do you bring it up on Saturday?
I was going to bring it up Saturday rather
Okay.
than make 2 trips.
All
Right.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering about whether we have to have Lou open it up on Friday. And I do have the laptops and I've got the 3rd club station and the 2nd power supply. So I'll bring those as well. As far as food goes, I do have the water. I have a couple of pallets of water that were left over from the Ham Fest, so I'll bring those. Did we have any snacks left over from the Ham Fest? Or do we need new stuff?
I didn't see much left over. Bob, did you have? We didn't have
No,
leftovers, did we?
I didn't have anything left over, so I would say we need to get new stuff.
All right. Does anybody want to take care of that? Or else I could probably pick up a couple of things.
Yeah, my car is going to be totally loaded, so
All right.
I won't be able to.
You'll be loaded
I
up.
can get a few things up going.
Okay. So Bob, we'll get some food and I'll bring the water bottle. So that's one of the heavy things. So I'll get that done. Yes, maybe just some snacks and maybe like some sodas or something that people might want. Then for the meals, we can always order them once we're on site. As far as Sunday goes, so Sunday morning, we're going to have the Penn Win. I mean, who's interested in coming back on Sunday afterwards?
I'll probably come back. I'll probably
All
come
right.
back.
So Herb, were you planning to come back on Sunday? You're muted.
Or where the little button is. Yeah, I mean, I kind of want to operate for the whole contest. So I have to figure out the best way for me to do that. I think it's going to be a challenge if nobody's coming until midday Sunday because of the public service event. I
Right. I mean,
think
if you want to be there on Sunday morning, you're welcome to. You're
right,
going to be
but
using your own radio equipment, right?
well, yeah, I mean, I guess I would do. So that means I gotta tear down on Saturday night and put back up on Sunday morning. Let me leave that pending, but is anybody else going to be there? Because that is a big driver for me also. If other people are going to be there, then it makes it more likely that I'm out there.
I'll definitely be there, but probably not till 11:30 or noon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean,
anybody's gonna
if
be
you
there.
want to hold down the fort in the morning, you're welcome to do that. I guess the question we can decide is whether you wanted to take some of the club equipment with you so that you could set it up if other people are there. If you'll be the first person back on Sunday morning.
Well,
maybe leave
yeah, I mean,
one
so
or
the
both
club
of the club rigs.
last year, what we did is Chris and Dieter and I packed everything, put all the rigs into the locked room. We left the antennas as is, but we put the rigs into the locked room. And then I did not come back on the Sunday. Chris and I didn't come back, but then whoever came there early in the morning on Sunday went and took that stuff out.
So that would probably have to be Lou because he has the key to the room.
Right.
Yeah, and he wasn't there at midnight on Saturday. He kind of opened the room for us and left. And then, it was down to the three of us doing that on Saturday night. And it was, I mean, hopefully this year won't be as cold. Last year was cold and windy and miserable.
Yeah. All right. So maybe we can figure that out more on the day of. But yeah,
Yep.
if we can leave the stuff there, we just need to have the key so that, Lou or somebody can, if Lou wants to drop by in the morning just to unlock the door. Yes, if you wanted to be there on Sunday morning to hold down the fort, you could do that. I guess it's just a question of whether we can get the club equipment set up again. And it shouldn't be too much because it's really just the power supply and the radio. Even some of the extension cords, we could just leave them there because I don't think people are coming to steal extension cords. And the antennas and the coax we can leave. So it's just a matter of just plopping the radios out on the table. And I'm thinking we'll probably do 2 radios. I mean, we have the 3 club radios, but if there's a bunch of people who want to operate, we could potentially set up a 3rd, but probably 2 would be all we need.
Yeah, I mean, unlike field day, where it matters if you're 2 alpha, 3 alpha, 4 alpha, in this, once you're more than 1 rig, you're multi-op. So, if you have the people to operate, the more rigs you have, the more bands you can be on simultaneously. So certainly during the afternoon hours on Saturday and also on Sunday, potentially 10 meters, 15 meters, and 20 meters, you could all be running, and even 40, if you had the rigs and the people, you could be running all of those bands.
Well, we don't want to run more than 3 rigs because we only have 3 computers. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah. And we've only got 3 club rigs, so unless somebody brings their own.
Okay.
Right. Yeah,
And
but
then if they do, they can try to operate on their own call.
yeah, we would have a mess if we operated more than 3 with a club station, a club call.
Right, but there's no reason, I guess what I'm saying is there's no reason not to operate 3. If you have the people, there's no reason to say
Right,
2
right.
rather than 3. You get no penalty for adding the 3rd person.
I totally agree, but we can't go to 4 and 5. I guess that was
Not unless it's somebody else's equipment and logging software and they're operating under their personal calls. And the other reason why you don't want to go to 5 is because we really need to be on different bands. Otherwise, we're going to make havoc for one another. And I mean, certainly last year, in the evening, we had Dieter operating 80 meter CW and me unsuccessfully trying to operate 80 meter SSB because I was being crushed by the CW. So band pass filters will help if we're on different bands, but at night, if you've got two guys on 80, that is it's just not going to work.
Yeah, so at night, we're gonna be limited to 2 or 3 stations anyway, right? 80, 40, maybe 20.
Probably. I mean, every now and then we are at like Dennis said, take advantage of cycle 25. Sometimes even 10 is open at night. However, it's going to if it's open, it's going to be open for DX, and we don't really need that much DX.
All right. Well, we can make a decision on the day of. We'll see how many people are around, and do we really want to run more stations, or are we good with what we have?
And is it raining? And is the sun giving us a solar flare and all of that kind of stuff?
Yeah.
That's game
So
day.
Bob, did you want to bring the 2 meter rig? So I'll have that.
The club's 2 meter rig.
Yeah.
Jim has that.
The 991A does 2 meters.
Oh, yeah.
I can bring a 2 meter if you want.
I'm just saying it's something that we could be connected to the repeater.
Yeah. Okay.
Well,
we probably don't need that much for that, but
can you Bob, you had that really nice big green pole or something. I mean, can you put a 2 meter antenna up? And I mean, there's not going to necessarily be all that much activity on 2, but it is a valid band. And certainly we are in an area. I mean, if we were out in the mountains in central Pennsylvania, we might not get anything on 2 meters, but here there's probably a lot of people who might be on 2.
yeah. So if we have a vertical, we could do 2 meter FM. And if maybe Dieter or somebody brings his Yagi, we could do 2 meter sideband as well. Because
Yeah.
we have the FT 991A now. So we could run 2 meters to get all 3 contacts that we get on 2 meters. Although sideband,
Well, I mean, you never know, because you may have people with tech licenses who want to operate on 2.
Yeah. If we can operate sideband, we might get a little bit more.
Right.
All right.
And I think if you spot yourself on 2 meters, people will potentially come looking for you.
I think are there other points? So equipment arrival is all taken care of. I'll be in contact with the telescope folks to get them to show up. Set up 9 a.m. Saturday. I think Sunday we'll figure out a little closer to the day of the event. Maybe on the day of the event, exactly who's coming back and when. So food. So Bob, you will look into getting some snacks and things for the day of.
Yep.
Okay. I think that's all the major stuff. So we don't really need to deal with the generator. I mean, unless we really wanted to bring it, but that's not really necessary. So Jim, when you're at Brian's, are you planning to go through the equipment and maybe streamline it a little bit? Because we probably don't need everything.
Yeah, yes, definitely. I mean, I'm not going to spend 2 hours there, but spending, half an hour and whittling it down. Yes, that's part of the plan.
Yeah, so we definitely want the 2 multi-band antennas, and may as well bring the dipoles while we're at it, because that'll give us a 3rd possible antenna.
I'm going to bring all the antennas. I mean, they're just wire, so it's no big.
There's not much weight, and then there's a big thing with all the coax in it.
Right. We definitely.
So then there's some. Yeah, I think there's one box that's like ropes and strap socket wrenches and things like that we really don't need.
Right. All right. No, I'll weed through it and then bring what we really need.
And then we've got the 2 radios, the power supply, and the bandpass filters. We'll need those. Trying to think of what else was in the club equipment. The signs we probably don't need.
Well, as I said before, my car has limited space, so.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking, if we can get it down to maybe like 4 bins, that's a
Oh,
little
yeah,
more
that-
reasonable.
Yeah, that should work.
You're not renting a truck for the event, Jim?
No, I'm not like Bob.
You can get an 18-wheeler.
Yeah, right. So, yeah, I mean, I should be able to get everything, but you know, it's gonna be tight.
All right. Sounds good. What else is there? Any other issues should, any other logistics things to get sorted out ahead of time?
I can't think of anything. It sounds like we covered things pretty well.
Yeah, I guess, depend if there's extreme weather, we can figure that out as the day gets closer. Do we need tarps and things like that? I can always bring those. Yeah, folks
Right.
have folding chairs. You can always bring those because they're probably more comfortable than the chairs that are on site. They're not the most ergonomically friendly.
Yeah.
I'm debating whether it's worthwhile to do a Friday trip up there ahead of time just to inspect the pulleys, maybe to see what the pavilion looks like.
Yeah, I won't be available Friday because I do have to work, so.
All right. I may be able to get up there on maybe Thursday or Friday. Maybe I'll reach out to Lou. See if we can just get on site just to check things out, make sure there's no surprises when we get in on Saturday morning.
Right.
Make sure the pulleys are working, make sure there's tables available. Make sure the power is on. That sort of stuff.
Oh, definitely. Make sure the bathrooms work.
Oh, I'll test those out real good. Yeah.
I mean, since you have, I mean, I don't know where it physically is, but since you have the generator, you may
It's
want
at Lou's house.
You may want to ask him
Lou
to
has
bring it just in case you do have a power failure.
Yeah, well, Lou's like, we could walk to Lou's house to get it, so,
Okay.
yeah.
All
it's
right.
Really
Yeah.
close.
Okay.
The only thing that needs to be prepared is that we have to get the propane ahead of time.
Oh,
I think we had one full tank, didn't we, from last time? Because didn't we get 2
Home
tanks?
Depot down the street has an exchange, no problem.
oh, okay.
Okay. I thought we had a problem last time getting cylinders. Was that just because we didn't have one of our own?
You can't exchange unless you don't have one.
No, you
I
can
think
buy
Rich
one,
brought
but
the
it's like
tanks and
3
the
times the price.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so
You can.
yeah,
sell-
I'll email Lou about that. I'll reach out to him. Maybe we'll just head up there a day or 2 ahead of time just to check things out. And I'll just make sure that generator's available if we need it.
Yeah.
I mean, if the power
Right.
did go out, Lou could always run home and grab the generator and bring it over.
Right.
If we're
right.
offline for 40 minutes,
Yeah. I mean, it's just like you don't want to get all those people out there and then, there is a power, like anything that can go wrong will go wrong. And you have a power failure and then, yeah.
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
I'll have my QRP rig. We'll run on that for a little while
There you
off
go.
batteries. We'll do that. All right. Anything else?
I can't think of anything.
All right, I think we're good. We got about 2.5 weeks and then we will, or 3.5 weeks, and then we'll be up 2.5 weeks. I got a couple events in October, so
I got
trying
one
to
thing
remember
to
which
try to
weekend.
remind everybody. We do have a end of the month breakfast coming this Saturday. So let's get that on the everybody's thoughts.
Oh, that's right. It's this Saturday. Is it this
Yes.
Saturday?
No,
Oh, because it's the 30th.
30th, which is this Saturday.
Which is this Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking it was last week and I just wasn't up to head now. So,
Yeah, we
And-
have
yeah, I
5 Saturdays in September.
yeah.
okay.
Okay,
Yeah, I'll
And I
actually be
did-
out of town.
I definitely want to
they say
thank
where I'm
and
going, not even there, Che.
I do want to give thanks, a shout out to Brian and Dennis for signing up for net control slots. We are now covered on October 1st and October 8th. So thanks, guys, for taking those slots on.
All right.
And
Thanks
I
all
need,
for attending. Thanks, Herb, for
I need to
joining us.
thank
in the middle of
Jeremy,
the-
and I want to thank you too, Jeremy. That presentation was awesome. And
All
Herb,
right, yeah,
yours was
hopefully really
great.
good.
Thank you.
All righty.
All right. Have a good night or the rest of your night, Herb.
Well, it's
care.
5 in the morning. It's time to get up.
As they say,
Time to wake up.
see you on the radio.
All right. See you on the radio. Take
Take
care.
care.